ACWS's Outcome Tracker training videos. In this video, I'm going to walk you through report management and storage. When you initially create a report, it defaults to save to your personal folder, and I think that's a good place to put your reports usually to start. This is because if you put a report in your personal folder, it isn't available to many other users. It can only be accessed by admin users, and even then admin users aren't going to go into your personal folder too often. I like to put reports there when I start just to make sure that they're pulling exactly what I want, they're what I need, and they actually portray the information that I'm trying to portray. That way nobody gets confused if they see a report in the shared agency folder. They see a report that doesn't appear to be pulling information correctly. So I think it's good to put, by default, queries and reports into your personal folder. So I want to explain to you for a moment the difference between the shared network reports and the shared agency reports. The shared network reports are reports that are available for everybody on the network. That includes your shelter and every shelter in ACWS who is on Outcome Tracker. The shared agency reports are only available within your agency. I cannot see them on Outcome Tracker, and nobody else in the network can see them. So you want to make sure that you're not saving reports in the shared network reports unless you have some sort of agreement with ACWS before you save them. Saving reports in here could be confusing for you and also for the network, for other people using Outcome Tracker. So I wouldn't save reports in here. One thing I would note that is if you do accidentally save a report in here, it's not like other shelters and agencies are going to be able to see your data. They would just be able to see your report, and if they ran that report, it would show their data in your report. But just to avoid confusion, I just don't save anything in the shared network reports folder. Instead, you should be saving things in your shared agency reports folder, which you can create subfolders in and organize any way you want, but your reports should definitely be saved there or in your user folder. So I want to show you how to move or copy a report and explain the difference a bit. So let's say you work on a report, you're happy with it, it shows what you want, the numbers make sense, you want to make it available for everybody at your agency. You can do that by copying or moving. So you just select the report that you want, copy, move, and here this should look familiar, but you choose the folder that you want. In this case, we'd want the shared agency report. And then we could select copy or move, and the difference is copy will take your report and make a copy of it in the destination folder, and move will take your report and physically move it from your home folder to your destination folder. So in this case, it would move from my personal folder to the agency reports folder. So basically what would happen is that it would no longer be in my personal folder. If I moved it, it would no longer be in my personal folder, it would be in the agency reports folder. If I copied it, it would be in both. One thing I will say is that whether or not you want to copy or move is a decision that requires a little bit of thought. It is good to have backups of reports, especially the most important reports on your database, in case something goes wrong, somebody comes in, edits it without meaning to, the numbers don't seem to add up anymore. It's always good to have backups of your most important reports. On the other hand, you have to weigh that against the reality that having same copies of the multiple reports can be very confusing. Sometimes what happens is a little bit down the road you decide you want to edit what the report is pulling a little bit, you edit one and not the other, you forget about one, and then later down the road, the numbers that should match don't, and you don't understand why. So it can be a little bit confusing to have multiple copies of the same reports. But on the other hand, like I said, it's good to have backups. So it's just sort of a decision that you have to weigh when you're copying or moving. So something to keep in mind. In my experience, it's best to limit the number of copies of reports that you have. So let's say that you want to delete a report. It may happen. So let's talk about deleting reports. Rule number one is you shouldn't delete anything in the shared network reports folder. You shouldn't be able to have that access anyway, so it shouldn't be a huge problem. But just a note, nothing in the shared network reports folder should be deleted. The second thing to keep in mind about deleting reports is that it should be done with discretion. You should be careful about the reports that you delete, because once you delete a report, it is gone. You will not be able to get it back. Maybe you have a backup somewhere, which would be great. If you accidentally delete a report, maybe you have it saved in another folder. That's great. But like I said, deleting reports should be done with discretion. So you'll see here this is the query and reports that we've been working with on these videos. So you'll see I've created a copy here. I'll say by accident, let's say I want to delete this one. So I would go here and delete. And of course it asks us if we're sure that we want to delete. So again, we hit delete. And then we come back and we see that this query is left behind. This is important to note. When you delete a report, it does not delete the query, which is maybe good. If you accidentally delete a report, the query is still there, so it may be that it would take minimal work to build that report again. But we also want the query to be gone, so let's delete that too. So this can become a little bit confusing because there are some reports that have subqueries and some reports that have many subqueries. So see here I have 3 subqueries. So if I deleted this query, these would still be here. And then I have to delete each one. So just something to keep in mind, that when you delete a report, you're not deleting the query underneath the report, you're just deleting the report. You may have to go back and delete the query as well. And finally, in this report management and storage video, I want to talk to you about naming conventions for reports. Now, it may be the case that you will need multiple copies of the same report that show the same information but in slightly different ways. For instance, this is an outreach report for HS. I might say that I want a residential report for HS. It'd be pretty much the same thing. I could copy it. I wouldn't have to build it all from scratch again. The only thing I would need to do is change one of the filters and one of the queries, and I'd have totally different results. And so the thing that happens is that sometimes when you do this, like you'll see here, I have 3 copies of the same report, and I don't know what the difference between these 3 is. So what I should have done, what would have been a good idea when I was doing this work, and again this is a demonstration, what would have been a good idea when I was doing this work was to, in the description and or in the title, whichever is easiest, whichever is best, or both, you put a little description of what sets this one apart. So maybe this one is the totals only for children, and maybe this one is the totals only for women, and this one is maybe the totals only for those discharged instead of intaked. Just examples. You can also put those in the name. Women, children, discharged. Just it's good when you're working with reports that will be very similar. The important thing is, especially in your shared agency folder, is to make sure that the difference between reports is very clear in the name or in the description, or both. The idea is that anybody who has access to reports and has a reasonable working knowledge of Outcome Tracker should be able to look into your shared agency reports and understand the difference between all the reports within. So it's important to make sure that you name your reports and queries clearly. So these are just some tips on managing your reporting and storage. And this has been ACWS's Outcome Tracker training videos. Thanks for watching.